Today when I got up, I didn't walk down to the cafe to buy a morning coffee. And while I wasn't walking down the street, I didn't see a distracted, famous, big-type movie producer talking on his phone, wandering out into the middle of traffic. And, as it turns out, I didn't step out onto the street and push him aside, only to get hit by an oncoming city bus. So, this big, important, famous producer type wasn't there by my hospital bed when I didn't wake up from my coma. "I owe my life to you," Mr. Bigwig didn't say. "Is there anything I can possibly do to make it up to you?" "Yes," I most certainly did not reply. "You can help me realize my dream of my blockbuster season. A whole slew of summer movies that will dominate the market." "Yes," he never said. "Let us use the whole wealth of Hollywood to make your dream come true." Since none of this happened, and since all of my psychics, soothsayers, shaman, and seers tell me not to expect it, and because no distant, feeble, and extraordinary wealthy aunts plan to leave me vast fortunes, I've made other plans. Without the means to make these movies, I'll just spill the beans to you now of my blockbuster season. The centerpiece of the season, the big mega must-see summer blockbuster, is the story of a 300-year-old psychic octopus with a taste for human flesh. Since I haven't come up with a real catchy title, I think I'll stick with 300-year-old psychic octopus with a taste for human flesh. It opens with a shot of an enormous great white shark cruising the ocean floor. Darting in and out of an old wooden shipwreck, it chases its prey. It finally lunges at a big fish, tearing it in two with one bite. For the moment satiated, it idles in front of a large yellow globe. An instant later, it's gone, snatched by a tree trunk of a tentacle. The camera pans out ever so slightly to show the audience the globe was the eye of a colossus octopus, which you only see for a moment longer before it's obscured by a red cloud of shark blood. Fade in to a series of close-ups of Douglas Jennings, a marine biologist giving an impassioned lecture on octopuses. Before you yell at me, I've been told that the correct plural of octopus is octopuses, not octopi. Octopi comes from the mistaken notion that octopus is Latin when it is really Latinized Greek. I don't know what any of that means. Anyway, Dr. Jennings describes how octopuses have the highest brain-to-body mass ratio of all invertebrates, arguably almost equaling that of a human or a dolphin. He goes on to explain that they have an acute aptitude towards learning, citing Skinner-type experiments and laboratory observations. In one lab, Jennings explains how fish were mysteriously disappearing from a large tank. The lad super had the locks changed, but still they vanished. So the super put a hidden video camera on the tank, hoping to catch a thieving employee. Upon watching the footage the next day, the super found that an octopus from another tank was opening its lid, scaling the ceiling, opening the tank in question, and then having a feeding frenzy, only to return to its own tank. Dr. Jennings continued to explain that since octopuses only live for a short amount of time, typically 3 to 5 years, that they do not reach their full potential. He suggests that an octopus in the wild might live longer due to its increased rate of learning and its well-known capability to camouflage itself in color and texture. Dr. Jennings concludes his remarks and looks up to his audience, consisting of a sleeping colleague, a janitor sweeping, and an older gentleman in a suit, listening politely and attentively. This is Maynard Fuller, a state representative and friend of Jennings. Dr. Jennings shakes Representative Fuller's hand, thanks him for coming, and apologizes for the turnout. Fuller assures him by saying, "Nonsense, Doug. Conferences don't matter squat. It's your research that's important." Doug replies by stating that without Fuller there would be no research, and thanks him for the 1,000th time for the funding he brought to the table. The two men walk to the hotel lobby cafe where Jill Fuller, Maynard's daughter, is waiting. "Jill, you remember Doug," says Maynard. "Of course," she replies a bit impatiently. "Nice to meet you again. Dad, shouldn't we get going?" "Ah, yes. Jill's graduation present. I'm allowing her to go out for a week with her friends on a dinghy." "It's not a dinghy. It's an 80-foot yacht." "Sounds like fun." "That's what I'm worried about. 6 teenagers out on the high sea having fun." "Dad, I'll be fine. I told you we're only going right off the coast. And really, we've got to go." "Well, Doug, you heard the boss. It was nice seeing you." "Thanks again. Yeah, good luck with your squids. Octopuses, actually. Whatever." Representative Maynard Fuller's driver drops off Jill at the dock, and she meets up with her boyfriend Kyle and the 2 other couples going on the trip. This is where the story gets deliciously cliché in true summer blockbuster form. Kyle is a star quarterback of the high school football team. Jill and Kyle are accompanied by Tank, a big oaf of a linebacker who's as dumb as a pile of bricks, but just as strong, his girlfriend Bobby, a bubbling blonde bombshell, Veronica, the stuck-up, nosy know-it-all who makes it her business to be at the top of the social food chain, and her beau, Chet, the rich, overprivileged, snooty, swarmy socialite whose dad owns the yacht along with a sizable portion of the country. They meet on the dock and load up their things. Tank unloads cases of beer and liquor from his van onto a hand truck. Upon seeing this, Kyle gives him a celebratory headbutt. "Boys will be boys," Jill says to Bobby. "They're boys," Bobby replies. Chet appears above them from the deck of the ship, dressed in his finest yachting ensemble, and announces, "Hurry up, plebs! Royalty can't wait forever!" "Screw you, Chet! Posh! That's no way to speak to your captain!" After loading, they pull anchor and set off. "Bimini, here we come," Chet shouts while at the helm. Jill is packing away some liquor when she says, "But I told my dad we were just anchoring off the coast." "Nice play." "No, I thought that's what we were doing." "Come on, don't be a pill." Insulted, Jill storms out of the wheelhouse. "Go stow your baggage, laggard." "Shut up." Kyle finds Jill at the stern of the ship, pouting somewhat. "I didn't mean it like that, babe. I just meant I want you to have fun." Jill looks at him suspiciously. Nice warm beaches, cocktails, swimming in the bay. Jill can't hide a bit of a smile. "And our own private room." Jill laughs and playfully punches Kyle in the shoulder. They begin horsing around as the camera pulls out to see the yacht cruising off into the vast blue expanse. That night, they sit around a gas fire pit on the upper deck, drinking cocktails and telling stories underneath the stars. The conversation dies down, and the sounds of the water playfully hitting the hull of the yacht wash over them. After a few moments of silence, Tank, holding a half-full bottle of vodka, pipes up with, "What'd you guys say?" Everyone laughs, except Tank, who looks confused and concerned. "Predictable old Tank. You're drunk." More laughter. Tank isn't amused, and seeing this, Chet changes the subject. "Do you guys want to hear something really scary?" "Chet, let's not, shall we?" "Shush, woman! You should know better than to disobey your captain." Prepare yourself for a tale of catastrophe and intrigue. A story of survival and dismay. I like stories. It's settled then. Our story begins with 6 young friends out on a 6-day fishing trip. Oh, jeez. Belay that remark, swab. No more interruptions. 6 friends sailing out on the high seas for some pleasure fishing. The second night out, they hit heavy storms, and by the morning they had lost their bearings. They spent the next day trying to get back on course, and by the late afternoon, they thought they had themselves reoriented. They were dead wrong. That night, they were awoke by a thunderous crash. The ship had run into a crag of rocks and punctured its hull. The ship sank fast, too fast for one of the passengers, who was sucked in by the vortex of water filling into the ship. The 5 others swam to the nearby island by moonlight. They awoke on a small, rocky island, the only shelter of which was a rickety, ancient lighthouse standing on the edge of a small bluff. They spent the next day gathering the supplies they could find from the shipwreck and taking stock. As dusk fell that first day on the island, they could see the unmistakable shape of a ship on the horizon. They waved and yelled in a panic. The ship was coming straight for the island. But then, just as the last light was waning from the sky, the ship changed directions. The survivors frantically looked for matches, lighters, flashlights, any kind of illumination they could use to hail the boat, but none was found. Disheartened, they tried their hardest to sleep. The next day in the lighthouse, they found 3 lanterns and a barrel of fuel. Just as they were wallowing in self-pity, one of the survivors shouted, "Ship!" The rest ran out to see the same ship from the previous night, headed straight for the island, closer than it was before. They jumped and hollered, waving tarps and shirts in the air, but after a while, the ship turned and went away. They couldn't believe it. Over the next 2 days this happened. The ship would be seen, a little closer than the previous sighting, and then it would turn and go away. "The tides," said the captain. You see, he had figured out, because the sighting of the ships were just over 12 hours apart, it must be abandoned and caught in the tidal current. Over the next few days, each time they saw the ship, the survivors would watch it listlessly. Each time they saw it came nearer and nearer, a sharp crag of rocks jutting out from the ocean floor before it would turn away. On this day, however, they saw something. There was movement on the boat. They jumped and stared. There was definitely someone or something alive on that boat. They thought it may be other people stranded, so they decided to stay up that night for the next time the ship passed, in case they had to jump out and save people from the wreck. That night, however, the clouds obstructed the light from the moon, so they couldn't see a thing. As the time came for the boat to appear, they heard a huge crash and what sounded like thousands of screeching screams over the surf. As luck would have it, the clouds broke for a moment, letting the light of the moon shine through. Had it not, there might have been no one left to tell the story. In the moonlight, they saw a teeming mass of rats writhing out from the sinking ship.